fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds honestly like friends, and I just kind of went with them, and it was definitely just I literally landed in. Okay.
What's up, everybody? I'm Kane from Dusty, Oregon, and I'm here with Toronto-based singer-songwriter Kubla. How are you doing today?
Great, man. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for coming in. We're sitting here down because you're putting out some new music in the new year. You've got a lot of exciting things in the past that I want to bring up, and very excited up-and-coming name in the Toronto scene, which is, like I said, very exciting for better. What am I gonna say?
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's just say excited one more time. Excited. First things first. Like you're putting up a new album coming up, but your last album was in 2020, which was a very interesting time for a lot of musicians, and you especially because you grew up in the West Coast and you moved to Toronto 2019, and obviously the pandemic happened. So how was that transition from the West Coast to Toronto for you?
I moved here with like $6,000, and just as a pad. I never got a job. I just started playing gigs. I just came here and like met a bunch of people, and people were like, oh, you sing and play guitar, like play in a hotel lobby, play in like whatever. And by the time the pandemic hit, I had made some friends, had some things rolling, but nothing that I particularly knew about. But it was really exciting because it was the first time I'd really moved to a big city. So I'm from a pretty small city. Victoria is like 300,000 people or so. And so I grew up there, and I worked as a professional musician there for a long time. And that taught me a lot. And it taught me really important lessons when coming here. And then when it came to producing Golden Boy, it was just a bunch of songs that I'd written that I really just wanted to like push out so I could wipe the slate clean. And I didn't have anyone to help me. So I just produced the whole thing myself. And it's not my favorite thing that I've made, but it's my favorite thing that I've forced myself to make because it really made me grow as a producer and as a musician.
And with this new album that's coming out, there must be quantifiable changes and differences in growth in your sound. And do you feel like that's been a very big leap, or is it kind of similar? Or
I'd say it's enormous. Like I'd say the difference in the energy that I'm able to put out and the amount of detail and refinement that I have in my sound, and how both clean and warm and how well the message is put out there is really clear in the way that my production has changed. And now with this new album, I met my friend Chris Crelia, who's an amazing producer and engineer in town, and just like a great creative directing force. And one day, my band and I had a gig that was canceled up somewhere in Lake Simcoe, and they still paid us.
Oh, nice.
So it's a great win. So I called Chris and I was like, hey, like I literally have like these 3 amazing musicians who are free for the day. Can we just book a studio and just like do a session? And I've featured these musicians on my tracks before, on the 3 tracks that I released this year, and he just pulled through. He just found a studio. He got everything right. He got all the drum sounds right, everything right, and all I had to do was arrange and put my song through. And I didn't have to worry about any of the engineering. I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So, coming from an experience of doing everything by myself, all my vocal engineering by myself, all my drum engineering by myself, it's really great to be in a position where somebody is like keen to invest in your work as a creative collaborator and show their skills for creating something that's way cleaner and more beautiful.
yeah, and you just didn't really have the opportunity for anything like that in Victoria, you felt, or were you still kind of young, or was?
I actually kind of right after I decided to become an artist, I moved to Toronto because in Victoria I was kind of known as like a band leader and a guitar player, and like I was hustling really hard and doing a bunch of different things. And I just started like maybe 2 years prior to moving to Toronto gigging as a singer and as a guitar player. And it was honestly a hard transition for me because it was hard for people to get to know me as that. So I just didn't really feel supported in my identity in that way. And that's all me. Like I'm not putting that on my friends in Victoria at all. I bet they would disagree with me, but it's just the way that I felt is the lens that I had. So I just needed a change of scenery in order to have that. So there were people in Victoria that would have probably done the same thing, but in Toronto, I just find that the scale is a lot different. The stakes are a lot different. So like People in Victoria, I don't know, like the attitude is more that you can be more laid back and you can approach things. There's something called island time where like you come like 15 minutes late to everything. And it's just the attitude that's carried there. And it's just because the stakes are lower and it's just because you can only aim so high. Whereas in Toronto, you can aim quite a lot higher. And so because of that, you can find collaborators that really mean it. And that's just my experience.
Yeah, and you started pretty, you know, humbly too here in Toronto. You played a lot of different venues, a lot of different spaces, even like outdoors. And do you have anything in particular that really stood out to you when you first moved here?
Yeah, I mean, I just started busking. Like I just started playing on the street. I just rented a speaker from Lon McQuaid and broke the law and just played on the street. And
Nice.
what I learned is just that like you just have to do it yourself. Like there's no waiting for anybody. There's nothing to like. Obviously, there are great collaborators. Like I'm putting on a show this Saturday, obviously after this comes out, but before this comes out, but and you know, I'm working with a great promoter for that, and who's in this room right now? He's somewhere. I'm working with a great promoter for that, and there are people who you can find who you can collaborate with who are great. But a lot of people, when they work in the industry, they're looking to play the big places. But all that really matters is that you're playing where people are. And so I just started playing on the street. People saw me. They'd invite me to their restaurants, their weddings, their hotel lobbies, to their showcases, to open for them, like all these various different things. And I was just ready for whatever came at me, so long as it involved me getting better at my craft. So like lots of people ask me to play guitar for them. I say no 99% of the time because I'm not that kind, like I'm aiming to be a singer-songwriter. I want to play on big stages for lots of people. I don't really want to get stuck in some kind of rut where I'm just playing guitar for other people. And no shade to people who do that. There's some people who are amazing who do that, but I leave it to them because I have a gift that I feel like I have to share. And so
Yeah, that's very honest of you too. And you recently played your first show outside of Canada, very excitingly in London, UK, with So Far Sound. And how was that experience, being able to play your music outside of, you know, Toronto? And
well, so for like young, like up and coming independent musicians, So Far is great because they can connect you with like different locales. And like it was really great because I just got to spend 2 weeks in London, and I just had some friends there I stayed with, and really get to know a different scene that wasn't a big city, that wasn't Toronto. And I feel like when you visit a place, normally you don't have that kind of leeway. Like you're either touristing, so you're trying to make the most of every experience. But I literally just went to a jam the first night, met a bunch of friends, and then just kind of went from there. And then I just had a show on Saturday. I literally landed in London because I went there because I was going to a cousin's wedding in Portugal. And so I went to London right after, and I landed in London. And I was like, okay, I have to make a friend who has a guitar so I can have a guitar for my show on Saturday. And I managed to. I met a great friend named Jack Page, who's awesome. And I stayed with him for a few days. And just that experience of being able to travel and be somewhere and not have a huge amount of pressure, you know, I wouldn't really call it a tour. It was just like I went to a place and I played a show. There's some people who came who've been listening to my music for a long time. I got recognized because
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty crazy. Like Toronto, London is my biggest city on Spotify. So, you know, there are a couple of thousand people who listen to my music every month there. And you know, I was just at jams and there's some people who are just like, are you Kubla? And I was like, what the heck is this? So yeah, as an independent artist, it's like, it's great to be able to work with a company like So Far Sounds.
That's awesome. And the one video I saw where you were playing at this show at So Far, it's a great angle because there's you on the, you know, playing, and there's a couple women in the front row who are just sitting there in awe. And it is so funny. All the comments too were like, those girls are swooning for you and everything. I'm sure that happens pretty often for you, eh?
I mean, it's kind of a service that you supply, right? Is sort of like, I feel like it's something that I kind of grew into too, because I grew up as like a pretty chubby kid. And so like girls never looked at me like that, like ever. And I still don't know how to deal with it, like as a human, but as a performer, I understand what I'm doing for them. Like, it's not about me, it's about like them being able to be like enamored by something and enjoy that experience of being, and you know, you see it at like a Harry Styles concert. It's like,
yeah, he kills it.
Yeah, it is like 75% women just being like, you know, which is sick. It's amazing. But and I think it speaks to something that's inside of us all, which we want to like look at something and really be in awe of it. And It's not my aim to be seen as that, as Kieran, as who I am, but as a performer, I understand that that is the service that I supply for people. So,
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that there's going to be posters coming soon for girls to put up in their bedroom.
yeah.
I think that's what we're getting at.
I mean, I'll leave that up to someone else's ingenuity. It's hard to look at yourself and be like, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about social media too, is like, you know, you have this opportunity to kind of share your gift with other people around the world and just let them kind of stumble upon you. And your TikTok in particular is pretty funny because some artists, you know, they really try and they dig to promote their music aggressively and, you know, hoping for that thing to crack. And I feel like I was going through some of your videos and it feels so nonchalant and humble.
Really
and
is.
speaking of crack, in the best way possible, your guitar. I stumbled upon this first one before I even realized who you were. That the guitar you fixed your guitar. Can you just tell me the story how that even happened? Where you broke it and.
Okay, with guitars that are like in a 335 body style, which is like an old Gibson guitar that's like super famous, like the headstock neck joint is like really fragile. So I broke it once because it fell off a guitar stand, and I was like, oh my god, it's the end of my life. Like I just got this guitar, it's a great guitar, and I took it to a guitar specialist, and he was like, no problem, I'll just glue it. And I was like, glue it? Like I can do that easy. So he did it the first time, excuse me, and then the second time it happened, I was like, okay, great, I'll just glue it. I glued it and it worked. And then the third time it happened, it was a full clean break.
Third time.
So I've broken this guitar neck 3 times. And it's just, you know, it's just because like I think a lot of people are very precious with their things, and I take good care of my stuff. Like I want to make sure I can use it for a long time, but you know, I'm sometimes that day that I broke it, I just had played 2 gigs the night before. So I'd play music for 6 hours. I had like another rehearsal gig thing that day, and then I had a gig that night. So I just dropped it. I just dropped it in its case. It was just in its case, and I dropped it, and I was like, I bet that it broke. I just bet that, and it just clean snapped off. And I was just like, all right, I had another guitar in my car. I used that for the gig, and then I just went home and had the wood glue from last time I did it, and borrowed a clamp from my neighbor and just clamped it down.
And now it's got a smile on it.
It's got a smile on it. Yeah. On TikTok, I like to put on a little bit of a persona. Not a persona. I just like to be a little bit more mischievous because I feel like it's less curated. It's more fun. So and I find that has the best result too. People usually react the best.
Yeah, I think it's like actually a really good point for a lot of, you know, up and coming artists in general, just to like not try so hard because it comes off as disingenuine.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep that kind of lo-fi philosophy and. Something that I feel like that's the other thing too about your music and your persona and your way of life is I feel like there's a very philosophical centric perspective of a lot of your stuff because I was going through, you were writing some essays on like your website's blog, and even your name is based off of a poem, which is pretty cool. And how do you incorporate that into your music, you feel?
I think that it's just the way that I like to communicate. I like to think deeply about things. Like it's not like something that I'm pretending. I'm not pretentious about it. It's just like if you get to know me, I get really nervous because some people you can't really have those kinds of conversations with because they completely misconstrue what you mean or what you're trying to say or whatever. So you have to be very precise with how you say them. And I find that with music, it's really easy to communicate really hard things because you have to really condense it. It's like, you know, when you have an essay, like if you write an essay in high school or whatever, and maybe this isn't for a lot of people, but for me, like if I had a 2,000 word essay, I would write 3,000 words and then I had to pare it down because I would just like write. I think for a lot of people, and I experienced this too, is that they would write and they would be like, oh crap, it's not even 2,000 words yet. But like from my experience, it's like when you actually get really dig into an idea, you can really go too far. And so what I like about songs is that you have to like, I could like normally with my songs I write like 12 verses, and then I like pick the ones that I think actually encapsulate what I'm trying to say. And most of the time it's not like something that's heady, because I think that people think of like the idea of philosophy as something that's very heady and like not emotional, but I really view it as something that's deeply emotional, and that's really all I'm trying to convey is like the emotions of what it is, something that really cuts deep to the core of who somebody is. And I think that the songs that I release, that's really what they try to do. And you know, some of them not so much. Like some of them are kind of cheeky. Some of them are like fun or things that I just like the sound of. But especially with these upcoming songs, like I have a story behind every one of them, for what I was going through, how I was thinking about it, and it's just the kind of guy I am. So I really just try to express it authentically rather than, and if it doesn't land for some people, that's good, because when it comes to the kind of audience that I'm trying to reach, it's like I know that they exist out there in enough numbers that I can really support them and they can support me in turn with what we serve each other with. So I just aim to be really authentic with that.
Yeah. Is there any story from this upcoming album that you feel is like your strongest, most personal anecdote?
Yeah. So the title track kind of idea, the idea that I have is calling it Icarus, the album. And it's because I wrote this song called Icarus. And it really comes to the origin story of why I'm like this. And it comes down to the fact that my grandfather, when I was a kid, would, he would sit my cousins and myself down and my brother and read us like Greek myths and old Chinese tales and stuff from the Tao Te Ching. And he was just like an amazing philosophical guy. He spoke like 14 languages and was like a super brilliant dude. At the same time, as a super complicated guy. Like he was an alcoholic. He cheated on my grandma a bunch of times. Like my family is a very complicated relationship with him. But I remember just really loving playing with him when I was young. He died when I was really young. And I just know that being raised in that environment really shaped how I viewed the world, because he gave me all of these metaphors and all of these analogies to kind of like lenses to view the world through that I didn't even realize. And, when I was a kid, it kind of made me be treated weirdly, but what it really boiled down to for me was the myth of Icarus, was that when you deal with these things and you like go boldly into these ideas and you go boldly into your life, you find that sometimes you fly too close to the sun, you get too excited, you get too interested in it, and you get burned, and that's just the cycle of life. So there's a song called Icarus that I think, which will kind of be released with the whole album, which kind of encapsulates what I'm going for with that.
Yeah, well, I got a sneak peek of the album. It's really beautiful stuff, and it definitely, the growth from your previous album, Golden Boy, into this one is substantial, and it's very exciting to see where you kind of go to next and everything like that as well. And yeah, nice. Chris, how would you describe your sound? Because I know I don't like putting that into words for other artists, but
I have a good elevator pitch. I like to say that my sound is somewhere between Stevie Wonder and John Mayer. So it's like I like to use complex harmony. I like to use like Stevie Wonder does. I like to use like memorable melodies and concepts that are like emotional and deep and not afraid to be maybe a little bit irreverent, but at the same time be like totally acceptable and universal, which I think is what Stevie Wonder does really well. And then my music's super guitar based. It's really based in like my baritone voice. It's really based in sort of the more modern contemporary influences, and really kind of speaks to me sensitively as a songwriter. Like I write all of my songs in the first person, which I think really speaks to the John Mayer side of things. So that's how I like to describe it for people.
Yeah, that sounds appealing to me. I'm like, yeah, let's put it on.
Yeah.
While we're cooking, while we're doing the dishes,
Totally.
while we're making love. I don't give a crap.
Exactly.
Let's make it happen. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's nice in the background of a party. I wouldn't say it's great gym music, but there's music for gym music.
Yeah. Well, it's good maybe for the treadmill. If you're walking on the
totally.
treadmill,
You want to have a think,
Yeah,
totally.
exactly.
You want to have a feel. You want to like have a little cry on the treadmill. That's great.
Works anywhere.
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah, I'm very excited for that album to come out and for the rest of the world to be able to hear it as well. And good luck with your show on Saturday.
Thank you.
People will be seeing this after the fact. You missed it. Stay tuned for the next one after that too.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for
man.
sitting down with me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
This has been great. So stay tuned.
Awesome.